Hey everyone, welcome back to the Critic-Verse. We're continuing with the review catch-up tour with Season 3, Episode 5 of Superman and Lois, titled Head On, which is in reference to the Bruno Mannheim confronting Lois directly about what she is doing at his clinic, and Lois confronting Mannheim about all she's accusing him of directly. But also, it seems to be about Natalie getting into a relationship head on with Mateo, who comes to her this time around. But before we get to the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for what's going on in the Critic-Verse. Now, let's get to the video. The episode is revealed to be taking place 3 weeks after the last one, since Jordan says Candace takes up all the hot water and it's been 3 weeks of cold showers, and makes a joke about Candace being his mortal enemy, even being annoyed when she's shown to have a line in the episode. Sam and Natalie have been spending more time together after the failed movie hangout earlier in the season. And the episode starts off on an emotional note because we are shown Lois having her first chemo session with the Hobbs Medical Bay team. George Dean Jr., nicknamed Jr., is shown for the first time after he was mentioned in episode 2 as he used to be friends with Sarah. At least that's what Lana says. But this is even mentioned by Jr. himself, noting that they haven't been friends in 10 years. Mannheim's secret lab that we've been shown throughout this season, that has been shown underground, is shown to be underground the Hobbs medical facility, where he has been treating supervillains and juicing them up with Superman's very own blood. And he is also shown to be treating a supervillain at that moment. James DeStefano, who was mentioned earlier in the season, is the supervillain Deadline, who debuted in 1989 as a Starman villain, with pretty much the same abilities and equipment except the floating disc that he would hover around on. Mateo comes back into the picture as having been invited to Smallville by Sarah, and that's who she's been shown to be texting in the lunch scene that she was having earlier with Lana. Lois takes her chance of being a patient at the facility to walk around with almost free range, even using the excuse that she's dropping off a sample to get past a nurse's station in the episode. General Lane seems to be masking his feelings of being a protective grandfather to Nat as being a protective general over Clark and Jordan's secret. Which was kind of funny to see, as you can tell that he's really just caring about Nat, but he doesn't want to admit it. Bruno Mannheim confronts Lois directly, even admits to knowing exactly why she chose to be treated at his facilities, and she in turn lays out all her cards and accuses him of everything that she thinks he's behind so far this season. We seem to be getting the foreshadowing of a romance plot for General Lane, as he seems to have an almost aversion to the early stages of romance, and Jordan says it's not too late for him to start dating, something he not verbally, but his face seems to reject. Jonathan seems to be starting a new storyline of potentially becoming a firefighter, as he stops to help Kyle when he's having car trouble, and he asks him to come by the fire station and show him around, and potentially be a volunteer. And they also seem to be removing Candace from John's story, as she is moving in with her aunt, who has a place in Topeka, Kansas, which John notes is 4 hours away. I know Jordan must be real happy, but back to John. This firefighter storyline is probably the setup for him learning that he doesn't need powers to help or be a hero, but I'm not exactly too excited on it because I do want John to get powers. And if he was a firefighter with powers, that'd be even cooler. We had a near-miss kiss happen between Natalie and Mateo, which I believe they did that because the two characters are truly related in the show. I believe it's because Mateo could potentially be Darlene's son. You know, John Henry's sister, who's been shown in the first episode and last episode. But many others believe that Mateo is Bruno Mannheim's son, and I think that could actually be a possibility, but he would be the son of Darlene and Bruno Mannheim. But there's not much to go on, considering the fact that we haven't been shown that Mannheim has a family, but nor have we been shown that Darlene has a family, but they could throw that in there to provide like some sort of wrench to stopping Bruno, or just a twist in the scene in the show. Bruno explains to Lois why he wants to save his community so bad and why he's funding this medical center and how it has to do with his mother. So they might be rewriting his backstory, since Boss Moxie was supposed to be his father like in the comics, but they might be going away from that. The Kyle and Chrissy romance takes a bit of a leap in this episode as they dance together in public, but it seems the teens are a lot more receptive to it than is expected. Maybe if Sarah would have been there, it might have been a bit more embarrassing for her. In this episode, Clark has multiple scenes where he's talking with the other cancer patients getting their treatments, and he's shown to want Lois to rest because she seems to have been such a busybody today. But it's interrupted by Deadline, James DeStefano, attacking the DOD. And it's interesting to see Superman fight someone he can't hit, but Clark figures out that he has to hit him just at the right moment when he's trying to hit Superman. And just before he has to become solid to make an impact, Clark strikes him right in the chest, sort of malfunctioning his tech. Lana and Sarah have been trying to rebuild their relationship since the slap from about 2 episodes ago. And while Sarah was talking to George Jr., trying to cheer him up after the loss of his father, which he is reminded of when Lana makes a speech at the dance. And I knew the second Sarah took a sip from Junior's flask, that was the moment that Lana was going to interrupt them. And not a moment sooner. And I'm not the biggest Sarah fan, but I was totally on her side in this scene, and I was really glad that Lana gave her a chance to explain herself. And didn't go too hard on her for drinking, because in reality she only did take 1 sip. Sarah's character throughout this episode and a couple of episodes earlier in the season, she seems to be living vicariously through Nat, in terms of romance at least, because she seems to be taking a break from romance herself after the 2 seasons with Jordan, but she was pushing Nat into romance. First, making her look up her crush to see if he exists in this universe, then pushing Mateo to talk to her at the party because he was crushing pretty hard. And then she invites Mateo to town to potentially take Nat to the formal, which she was happy to see that he was there when he came through. The kids then get home with General Lane and realize they didn't get any photos, which was the one thing that Lois asked for, because she couldn't make it to the dance because she was feeling fatigued after her chemo session. But the scene in total is really sweet because since Lois couldn't get to the dance, Clark sort of brings the dance to her as he moves aside a coffee table and makes space for them all to dance. Well, mainly Clark and Lois and John and Candace, because General Lane rejects Jordan's offer to dance. And later, Jordan reveals that he put a dating app for seniors on General Lane's phone, which is sort of a reflection of the times that we live in, considering that even senior citizens have dating apps now, and it's not just eHarmony or something. And how smartphone culture is the wave, comparatively, in this day and age. Throughout the episode, Lana was thinking of George Dean's reputation and how people still despise her because they don't know who he really was. And she was going to publish a smear piece, kind of, on him, but was actually blowing the whistle on what he was really doing. But by the end, she realizes she doesn't want to publish the piece because that would put his reputation in a bad light, especially after Sarah was consoling Junior and talking about how the memories he has of his dad is all that he has left. And had she gone through with the article, it would have probably sent George Jr. over the edge. Candace gets kind of a huge send-off as Jonathan drives her to Topeka, and I don't see this character returning anytime soon, but who knows. Candace also gets to leave without knowing Jordan despised having her as a house guest, as she calls him really sweet and tells him to look after Jonathan. But what's really cool is that during this scene, Sam is sort of seen in the background out of focus taking a phone call, but this phone call is actually really important and has an impact on probably where we're going to go in the next couple of episodes. And on the phone that he's told that Intergang was actually getting information on DoD sites where they store really sensitive items, and that while that Deadline was getting that information, Intergang was secretly hitting those sites. And they asked them what they get, and it turns out the DoD has been housing the corpse of Bizarro Superman from last season. And then we get a glimpse of Bruno Mannheim staring at Bizarro's dead body and how he's going to have his doctors experiment with this now instead of just a couple drops of blood. Now, with the reveal of Bizarro's corpse, who knows what will come of it in this particular universe that the show is in. And how this could be how we get this universe's version of Doomsday, or this universe's version of Superboy Connor Kent, especially since Lex Luthor is gonna be in this season. Well, that's all I have in this review. My next Superman and Lois video I know will be back to form with the regular breakdown and review. Hope to see you next time in the Critic-Verse.